Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Firstly, thank you so much for being here. As you know, tonight's talk is being led by Laura Mitchell, who you can see on the screen. Laura is our post-16 counsellor, and she's going to run tonight's session, which will be talking about supporting your child with their mental health. A quick bit of housekeeping. This meeting will be recorded. The purpose of that is so that it can be shared with any other families who would like to see it at a later date. But that does mean that if you ask a question, then the question will appear on the recording. So if you have a question and you do not feel comfortable asking it in such a way that it appears on a recording, which might be made public, then just email Laura outside this meeting and I'm sure she'll be happy to answer your questions. I suggest a number of people are just joining, so I suggest we give it one more minute, Laura, and then we get going.
Absolutely, that's fine.
Right, I suggest we get going. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Laura Mitchell, who's going to deliver her session about how to support your child with their mental health. I hope it's very useful. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Ms. Green, for that introduction. The session today is really focused on supporting students around exam periods. Hopefully it'll be helpful. Hopefully there's some useful considerations and strategies. I know, well, I like to think that most parents have got really good intentions. We're coming here and it shows by the people that are already in this meeting that we care about our young people and we want them to do well and we want to support them. And we also kind of think about what our hopes are for their future as well. So it's just a few things to think about that hopefully will be really helpful. I'm planning on sharing my screen now. If for any reason it doesn't come up, if someone could shout and let me know, that would be really helpful.
Yes, Laura, we can see that perfectly. Thank you.
Brilliant, fantastic. Right, so we start there. In. Perfect. So I just kind of wanted to start by thinking about teenage years, what they look like, what they mean. I'm not intended for this to be patronizing at all. It's just kind of a reminder that teenage years mean massive neurological changes, behavioral changes. We'll see there will be low empathy, there will be high risk taking, there will be a real pull towards friendships and how important they are to them. All of that means that that can be quite a difficult time. If we put on top of that A-level exams, actually it can be really difficult. And for most students, A-level exams will be the most important and most stressful and the biggest thing that they've had to overcome. So if you consider all of those things together, it's a bit of a melting pot and can be really difficult and really challenging. I think it's helpful to think about what that means in terms of their connections between their thoughts, feelings, and behaviours. So what we might be seeing is some kind of pushback, some kind of moodiness, some kind of language that maybe we're not comfortable with, or snapping. Actually, that's usually coming from a place of uncertainty or it's coming from a place of stress and they're just really doing that connection. They're going, oh my gosh, I've got an exam, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail. That leads to big feelings of overwhelmed or stress or challenges, which we then see as parents. I think the period from now until the Easter holidays is probably one of the most stressful. That's definitely what I see with students that I'm working with, because mocks are done but we're not quite at action point yet, so it can be really difficult. So I think stress is normal. It shows they care, but it's also really difficult for them to navigate and really challenging. I've put impossible to get right because my eldest son is just about to sit his GCSEs, which is not the same as A levels at all. But I know that I can do one thing one day, and that's really good and that's really helpful for him. And then I can do another thing, do the same thing the next day. and it's 100% not okay for him. And I know that, I can see when he's stressed what that means for him and what those difficulties are for him. So I think all we can ever do is just continue to be there as support and continue to just try our best to be what they need in that moment. I think I really like the idea of being their anchor, recognizing that struggle for independence. And it's such a natural time for young people to be pulling away from us as parents. They're finding their own. I recently found out about the theory of spoiling the nest, which is when young people are preparing to leave. So whether that's university or for their next steps, they kind of spoil the nest. So they make it very difficult for us, but potentially make it really easy for them to leave. So some of that is really difficult to navigate when they're potentially pulling away from us at a time when they probably could do with us the most, when we can be that consistent person, where we can be the ones that really can provide those connections. And especially when you kind of go into Easter holidays or into their study leave, they might not be having as much contact with friends. So our role will be really important in that place. But again, it's really difficult to make sure that we are the ones that are providing that. And again, just trying our best to be that consistent, caring, consistently supportive, trying to give them at the moment what they need and trying to give them time, trying to give them understanding. Quite like the idea of using if and then. So I'll talk about it a little bit later again, but the idea that this time can be really difficult because A levels are usually a stepping stone for young people. So the stress will also kind of be related to, but what if I don't pass my exams? What if I don't get into my first choice uni? What if I don't get to any uni? What am I going to do? What does my next step look like? And I think wherever possible, it would be really helpful if we could be the ones that co-regulate that. But also if we can kind of say, well, if that happens, then we'll call clearing. If there's difficulties, then you take a gap year and you reevaluate and you work out what's next. But also being the person that can be the one that brings them to the present. I can see that you're really stressed about what's going on right now. What do you need? What is your priority? And just consistently be providing that kind of love, which can be really hard when we're dealing with someone who can be finding things really difficult. And then their behavior might be as such that it might not be as helpful as it might usually be. With communication, and I referred to it earlier, I think it's so difficult for us to get this right. But then it's just doing the things that you need to do. Later on, I will say how phones can be particularly challenging and might be a really big distraction. And students tell me quite often that it can be problematic to manage their phone time and revise. However, they can provide that really good connection. So I will give you an example. My son sent me a text message on Saturday saying, please stop nagging me and telling me to revise. I sent one back saying, I'm really sorry. I just don't want you to be stressed tomorrow. But it was helpful. I just needed him to tell me, and then we could move forward with what he needed. So use text messages, use messages so that we can communicate. Also, sometimes when I know he's not revising, I can just send a message, and it might be a link to some trainers I think he might like, or it might be talking about a TV program, or when we're in the car. That's always such a great time to communicate with young people. Just having those opportunities so they can, again, we're being that anchor, again, we're being that co-regulation, but we're just providing them with that space and providing them with that support and showing them that we're there for them. As much as possible, when I speak to students, I really encourage them to use I feel, and then they explain it, and then I need. And if you can encourage young people to say those things, to talk that through, that might be really helpful. Sorry, my slides are running away from me. So I think as parents, again, because I think we're largely coming from a place of caring and good intentions, I know I sometimes go into fix mode. I want to fix this. I want to give you a solution and I want to make it better. Actually, sometimes they don't need that. Sometimes they need a hug, or sometimes they need a walk, or sometimes they just need some space. So it's acknowledging them and encouraging them to use that vocabulary so that they can say what they need. I often say to students, I think it's really important they could talk to themselves like they talk to a friend. It's probably something I say more than almost anything else, because lots of students will be really critical of themselves, and that can be far reaching, from extremes like, well, I didn't get 100% in my exams, to, oh my gosh, I didn't do enough in year 12. It's, or, I'm stupid, or I'm never going to amount to anything, or I'm never going to get into uni I want. It's all of those really black and white thinking and those extremes that they're pulling on. And if we can try and encourage them to be a little bit kinder to themselves, reinforcing that, modeling that, then I think it could be really helpful. Talking about challenging their worries, it's just doing it on their time frame. And I think it's just a difficult time, but just trying to be there, trying to reassure them, and trying to encourage them to be present. One point I think could be really helpful is the idea of connection before correction. So that looks like if a young person has left it to 10 o'clock on a Sunday night to do the homework that's due in tomorrow, it's not necessarily helpful, or what they want to hear, to say, well, I told you to do this Friday and Saturday and you just went out with your mates, or you sat on your phone. What we want to do is do that connection, and again say, okay, what's your priority? What do you need right now? What's going on for you? Quite a nice way of having that communication can be using WIN. So I wonder, I imagine, I notice. All of those ways hopefully would allow them to open up, and hopefully moving away kind of, from one word answers or the pushback that maybe we get. And again, this might not always feel right or might not always work, but it could look like, oh, I wonder how you're feeling about going back to school after the Easter holidays. I imagine stress levels for everyone in school are pretty high right now. Or, I notice you've been really quiet today. Is everything okay? Do you want to talk about it? What do you need right now? It's not always easy, but just trying to provide that opportunity could be really helpful for them. Yeah, okay. So the next one, and I know that this is something that has been talked about previously, is the basics really matter. And all we need to do is kind of support where possible. However, when stress levels creep up, I know my sleep gets affected. I know that gives me bad dreams. I know that can have an impact on me. So what things do you notice in, and what things can you do to support the young people? And I think now is a great opportunity to be having conversations with young people about how, okay, the exams are coming up. What do the next few months look like? What do you want to prioritize? What are we making conscious decisions around? How can we make sure that you're getting enough sleep? How can we make sure that you're getting enough to eat and we're eating regularly? Do you want me to give more reminders to make sure you take your iron tablet, for example? I think the balance here is really key. Thinking about what things might need to change, so what things might need to stop. So it might be that they go on unpaid leave from their paid job, or it might be that they reduce their hours slightly. Thinking about things that can provide them time. I know some students told me, okay, I want to cut back on one of my hobbies, but it still really be really good if I could keep going to the gym. So encouraging that time when they're exercising, encouraging that time when they might be outside. Particularly that's important when you go into study leave or over the Easter holidays, because often school will provide a routine that's really helpful, which means that they have to leave the house in the morning. It means that they will see other people. It means that they will go outside at lunch. When that stops, it can have a negative impact. So it's really important to think about what they might do at that time. I mentioned screen time earlier. It is really difficult, and it's just about working out as a family what feels right and what you want to do. I had a student a few years ago who went to the doctor talking about anxiety and low mood. The doctor said, you need to delete TikTok and Instagram. Now, I'm not telling anyone what they need to do with their children or that they need to delete those at all. I know that the YouTube videos in particular can be really helpful for revision. I know that phones can provide a connection to to others, especially when they might be not having contact with friends. But work out what's going to be helpful. Work out, does it need to look a little bit different for the next few months? Have a think as well, and this is what I am encouraging the students I'm working with to think about routines on the night before exams, the morning of the exams. And students have told me such a different things that they want. Some are saying, oh, it's really helpful to me to get up in the morning and go over my notes one more time. Another student's like, oh, it's really unhelpful if someone says, oh, show me your flashcards. It's really difficult. There's just about working out what works for you. Do they want to have a really long bath the night before? I would recommend, wherever possible, prioritizing sleep over that last minute cramming, because that's going to be more helpful for them. Where without sleep, then our tolerance drops, and our ability to function drops, and it will have an impact. So just encouraging really good routines that are going to work for them on exam days, the day before or the morning. One of my children, days of exams, pretty much want me to ignore them. I can say good luck, but that's pretty much it. One of my other children wants lots of reassurance, so wants a hug, wants me to say, I believe in you, you've got this, you can do this. Have that conversation now. What do they want? Do they want their favorite food when they wake up in the mornings? How are they going to make sure they're going to manage things? What students wanted you to know, now this is from kind of a few years ago, is about food. They want food. But actually it really depends. So I've explained to my son that he's got a little sweet shelves in his room. Those will be filled up when he's revising so that they're there. He's also really happy for me to always bring him in a hot chocolate or a nice drink, always happy for me to bring in food. However, I've been speaking to other students this week and they said, oh, if I'm in the zone and my parents come in and bring me food, that's really annoying and really difficult. That really distracts me and really kind of offsets what I'm doing. Again, it's about that communication. What do you want? What do you need? How can I support you with that? Practical steps, and this is something they will be already kind of exploring. I know that they're doing this in mentor time. Does a revision plan work? What does that look like for them? And then really thinking about how they're revising, where they're revising, when they're revising. I think variety, and again, this is my personal preference, but it's also what other students are telling me. It's really good to mix it up. It's really good to have variety, especially when we go into potentially a few weeks into the exam, but they might have been revising quite consistently for 7 or 8 weeks. It's a really long slog. So can they mix up how they're revising? It's YouTube videos, it's flashcards, it's mind maps, it's going over notes, it's practice papers. All of those things should be considered, and it's about mixing that up and encouraging them to think about what that looks like, making those conscious decisions. Again, where they revise. I think it's really helpful to think about, okay, they're going to revise sometimes at the kitchen table, sometimes they're going to go to a cafe, sometimes they might go to Warwick Uni, sometimes they might go to a friend's house. Again, that variety is going to be what's going to be helpful to them. If they're in a real rut, have a think about what you could do to support them. And again, it's a really difficult line to tread, because are we fixing it? Are we providing those solutions? They know it all already, so it's really difficult. But having those conversations now might be really helpful. Again, encouraging them to think about what their rewards and their rests and their relaxation looks like. Lots of them will tell me things that they've got planned, whether it's small holidays or different things that they've got going on. It can be, a rest can be everything from 10 minutes in the garden playing basketball to going to the cinema with friends or a date night. You've got to work out what that looks like, and they need to work out what that looks like too. I think, again, if they're making conscious decisions around that, it feels more planned and it feels like they're in control of it. And I think that's some of it. That idea of what can they control and what can't they control. Can't control that what's going to be in the exams. Can't control if they've got hay fever in the morning exams. But what they can control is how much they revise. They can control making sure that they put themselves in the best position to get a good night's sleep. They can make sure they drink enough water. They can make sure that they do some revision in the morning so that afternoon is off. It's a balancing act, and it's about them working out what that looks like. For some students, it will be necessary, I think, maybe for parents to be saying, you've been doing a lot. It might be a good idea to have a bit of a break. Do you fancy a quick walk? Or are you going to catch up with friends this week? Other students, it might be the opposite. It might be I wonder what your revision needs to look like this week so you're feeling confident going into those exams. Breathing exercise can be really helpful, especially if you're kind of at overwhelmed or critical point. Box breathing is really lovely, which is where you breathe in through the nose for 4, you hold for 4, you breathe out through the mouth for 4, you hold for 4. Also doing 2 sharp, really quick, sharp intakes through your nose and then slowly releasing the mouth. These can have a really positive impact, and it might be that you're encouraging the young person to do some breathing exercises once a day. Actually, can that be something that they can consider? It might be that you're encouraging them to do some journaling, because that might provide them with the step that they want. I think I have spoken to students about emergency planning, and I give an example of when I was doing A-levels. I was studying psychology. I was particularly overwhelmed. I went downstairs, I had a really good cry to my mum. I had a hug. I had ginger cake and custard, and we sat down and we talked about how I could revise differently and how I could approach what I was struggling with, which was remembering certain names and dates. It's going to be different for every single person. Some students have told me, actually, I'm just going to get in bed and I'm going to go to sleep. And when I wake up, it's going to be reset and it's going to be okay. Some people have told me they're going to have a really cold shower and then they can do some breathing exercises and then they can start. Someone said, oh, I'm going to go and have a walk. I'm going to go stand outside. Or it might be that they order some fast food. Work out now with them, have that conversation now. If things get a bit much, or if you're feeling really overwhelmed, what's that emergency plan going to look like? Okay, all of the things I've talked about are obviously with the best intention and obviously with hope that we can provide that. But also, I want to recognise that this could be really difficult. Life is busy. We are really busy people, and we have work, we have our own care and responsibilities, we have younger children to take care of, we might have experienced our own losses or bereavements. There's lots of challenges in family life, and wherever possible, you try and work out what's right for you. And try to make sure that you're having that opportunity to manage your own responsibilities and routines. I know there's certain things that I'm going to tweak and change as we get closer to exams so that I can feel like I'm a bit more present. But we need to, we also need to be really kind to ourselves and know that sometimes we're going to get it wrong, but just try to be there try to be there where we can, and try to provide our young people what they need. Have a think as well about your own well-being. And sometimes I find it's really nice to talk to someone else who said, oh my gosh, I'm so frustrated. A young person is not doing their revision. I know that necessarily won't always work, but to know that other people are experiencing what you're going through can be really helpful. Or having your own break can be really helpful. The young people will come out the other side of what they're going through, and they will get to the summer, and they are going to have the best, longest, wonderful summer, hopefully. And they will get the results, and next steps will take them. But it's important that we take care of ourselves in all of that as well. Finally, it's just to say, if you are struggling, if you are really concerned about your young person, please make contact with the school. Please reach out. In emergency situations, please call 111. Please present at A&E if you are really concerned about the young person. If it's other things, make contact with the school. The teachers and mentors are experts at this. This is what they do year after year in supporting young people. So they will have good suggestions about particular revision tools, and they will be able to offer that support. There is lots of resources and websites that you can access. These run everything. I really particularly like the Young Minds website. I think that's really helpful. But if you're struggling, then have a look and explore what those resources are. If they're struggling, those resources are still there. And if you've got any questions at all, or if there's anything I can do to support your young person, then please feel free to just drop me an email and make contact. Be more than happy to have a chat or just message over email. That's absolutely fine. Okay. I'm just going to. Oh, there we go. Brilliant. That's everything for me. Wasn't aware of any questions or anything.
No, thank you so much, Laura. That was an absolutely brilliant session. If anybody does have a question for Laura, if you just pop it in the chat now, she'll be able to answer. Sorry, excuse my little boy shouting in the background. Okay, brilliant. It doesn't seem like there are any questions. If you think of anything outside the meeting, then just email Laura. You've seen her email address. A huge thank you to Laura for your time tonight. I thought that was really interesting and very brilliant, and I hope you did too. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thanks very much, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks, Laura. That was brilliant. Have a lovely evening.
You too.